What is the dose makes the poison?
The dose makes the poison is the fundamental principle of toxicology. So, understanding at what amount of consumption or exposure to anything we have what health effect, a beneficial health effect or a detrimental health effect. And everything, everything, water, oxygen, like things that we need to live can still be toxic at too high of doses. So you can actually, there's many case studies of people who drank too much water over too short of a period of time and expired. If you are exposed to too high oxygen, that causes damage to our lungs and can cause a variety of big, like acute respiratory distress syndrome type problems. So everything has a dose at which it is no longer good for us. And when we're looking to understand the impact of contaminants, pollutants, when we're looking to understand preservatives, additives, right? Food dyes, MSG, heavy metals as a contaminant, pesticide residues in our food, the dose makes the poison is the most important thing to understand, because just because something that is potentially harmful is in a food, it doesn't mean that the amount that it is in that food is harmful. So we want to understand how much is a problem for our health and at what threshold below which we don't need to worry about it, right? So that threshold below which we don't need to worry about it is either set as what's called a chronic reference dose or an acceptable daily intake level, depending on what we're talking about. So we want to understand, like, what's a low enough amount? I don't need to think about this at all. And then we need to know how much is in that food and how much of that food am I going to eat? And then we compare those numbers, right? So for the vast majority of all of these things that are fear-mongered on the internet, the cadmium in chocolate and the mercury in seafood and the pesticide residues on conventional produce, like all of those things, the amount that we're actually consuming when we consume those foods is way lower than that threshold where above which we would need to start worrying. So the acceptable daily intake level, which is this a really important threshold that comes from toxicology, that comes from this idea of the dose makes the poison, is the amount of something that we can consume every single day for our entire lives without it causing any health harm. And so understanding that and comparing that to how much is actually in these foods is the most important thing. And it is not what is being done by fearmongers on the internet who are telling you to be afraid of all of these foods and then buy my incredibly expensive supplement, right? That fear that's being spread based on we detected glyphosate in chickpeas or cadmium in chocolate or arsenic in rice, they're not putting it into context for you of how much you can consume of those foods before that level of that pollutant is of concern. And when you actually do that math, you generally see that the amount that you would have to consume is ridiculous. So that is why understanding the dose makes the poison is important.